Hi, my name's Doug Bennett. I'm the Executive Director of College Advancement here at the college. I've worked at Orange Coast College for a little over 29 years, so I have a pretty good perspective on the history of the college. We'd like to welcome you to our community meeting tonight. This is our fourth community meeting that we've had in regards to our master plan and our CEQA and our EIR. Tonight's meeting is an update. It's not a hearing. At some of the other meetings, we had court reporters taking actual minutes of the meeting. This is a chance for us to report back to you on where we are in our master planning process and where we are in the various reports that we've received from our consultants. Consultants that we worked with have included our traffic impact studies, the Orange County Fair parking structure in Fairview and the bridge over Fairview, a campus housing project, our college village center, and the historical structures on campus. I'd like to introduce some of our guests with us tonight. First of all, Mary Hornbuckle with the Coast Community College District Board of Trustees, former mayor of the city of Costa Mesa, and the main Coast District trustee for the city of Costa Mesa. We have from our leadership team at the district, Dr. Andy Dunn, recently Dr. Andy Dunn, our Vice Chancellor of Administrative Services, and then Jerry Marchbank, who's our Director of Facilities Management for the College District and is our leader in planning this from the College District perspective. From our leadership team here at the college, our Vice President of Student Services, Kristen Clark in the back, Kevin Ballinger, who's our Vice President of Student Services, and Rich Pagel, our Vice President of Administrative Services, who you'll be hearing from shortly. Also, we have with us in the blue down here in the front, Rachel Struglia, who's the primary author of our EIR report and available to answer questions. In the back row, Larry Frapwell, who's the president of HPI, the architecture firm that helps with our master planning and is also the architect for the planetarium that you see some pictures of around the room. Just to get started, to remind you that we're on a college campus, and what college campuses are about students, and that's our number one mission here at the college. Okay, next up I'd like to welcome Dennis Harkins, Dr. Dennis Harkins, the president of Orange Coast College since 2010, to give you an overview of what we'll be talking about tonight.
Well, here we are again. Welcome. I'd like to thank those of you back. How many of you have attended one meeting, 2 meetings, 3 meetings, 4 meetings? It's great to see the same people coming back because we need continuity as we try to work through this together. Your input's very important to us, and I think you'll see as part of the planning process goes on that some of the issues that you have raised have been considered. You know, planning is kind of the circular process, so it continues to evolve, and we think we've made some changes that are important for you to know. First of all, I'd like to recognize kind of what the goals are for the district. You know, why have we put together this plan? Next slide back there, please. All right, obviously what we're all about is increasing student success of our 25,000 students. Orange Coast College has a reputation of being a student of high completion rate. In 2013, we were recognized as being in the top 5% of completion and graduation of all community colleges in the country. You should be proud of that. We are. We don't increase student engagement in college activities. Orange Coast College isn't your traditional commuter school. Students come here, stay. They expect a rich student life. We're concerned about the holistic development of students and their involvement in becoming great citizens all the way around. One of our goals, I see Vice Chancellor Andy Dunn back there. He'll smile at this. We have a goal of achieving and maintaining a structurally balanced budget. That means that we don't want to go into the hole. We don't want to borrow. We want to be conservative, and yet we need to invest in the future. We want to provide an appropriate number of full-time faculty. Full-time faculty are core to the heart and soul of the institution, so we want to make sure that we have the right number of full-time faculty to support students, student life, student clubs, and all the activities that go on. Another thing we have is we want to leverage the efficiency and use of technology to support student learning. A lot of schools are going to an extreme where they want to become all online. We believe that our growth and future of Orange Coast College is to be known as a destination for learning and learners, so that this is a place people will come for their life, throughout their life, for learning. And they'll do that by interacting personally with faculty and each other, and then it will be enhanced by technology, and there will be some distance education, but it's not going to replace what we think is core, which is creating that sense of a learning community and a place for students to mature. We want to make sure that we have the right student support services to increase student success and retention. Students today have a more complicated life than ever before. Students bring with them a lot of challenges outside the academic classroom. We need to be there to support them. For example, our veterans come back and they have a lot of needs that we need to be able to support throughout. And then finally is to align our facilities and to have the right facilities in the right areas to continually support our growth and development as we move forward. Next slide. All right, so you look at continue this, increase alternative sources of revenue. There's no doubt that you're aware that the state is providing less support for institutions of higher education. So we're having to be more creative, have to do more self-funded type things in order to keep alive. The sailing center is predominantly self-funded. The child care center is greatly self-funded. The recycling center is self-funded. The food service here kind of supports itself as well. We need to be good stewards, but we also have to recognize we need to continue to look at ways to make ourselves less dependent on tax dollars that are uncertain. This was really highlighted just within the last few years where we had cuts in budget and we had to turn students away. That's not the way we should operate as a higher educational institution. We should provide more classes when students need more classes, particularly during economic downturns. We need to increase the involvement with external partners. We need to improve employee satisfaction. Then lastly, we want to increase the effectiveness and participation of governance on the campus, and I would say also within the community, so that you're all part of what's going on in the college. Okay. Tonight, this is not part of the CEQA process. This is just to update you on where we are in some of our planning process. We've put out there the EIR to you. You've made comments on it. We've gotten letters. We've reviewed them. And I think we have some information that will be good to look at. The Vision 2020 Master Plan, which is the foundation for all the growth that was done in the facility planning, which supported Measure M, was passed by the Board of Trustees in April 2011. And it's really a continuation of other plans that we've had in 2010, 2004. The college has always had a strategic plan of where they're going with facilities and facilities use. Measure M obviously was an important part of funding the 2020 vision, and that was done largely by support of the community, and we appreciate that. Last June 2013, we started the 13, we started writing and doing research for the EIR, the CEQA process, and we received comments in June 2014. Specific comments were directed at the following issues. One, College Village. What is a College Village? Why is a hotel there? What about the impact on traffic? What about the historical structures that are on campus? And what about the parking structure at the fairgrounds? So those are some of the things we hope to address today. We've had community meetings, as you can see, a number of times. And we'll continue to have community meetings as long as we continue to develop so that you have opportunities to hear what we're doing, but more importantly, we have opportunities to hear from you those things that you're concerned about or ideas or opportunities you see for the college. And we've had some good ideas brought to us from the community members, and I appreciate their suggestions and really shared problem solving. So we've heard from the students, we've heard from our community partners, we've heard from the neighbors, and we've gone out and done additional studies to clarify some of the concerns that you have. Next slide, please. All right. Did I skip a slide? Nope. All right. Number one is we believe that it's necessary for us to respond to some of your concerns, propose some changes, and then to recirculate the EIR. This gives everybody another opportunity to review what we're doing, to make comments on it, and to make sure that we're transparent in all the decisions that we're doing moving forward. Part of that is we have heard your questions about the College Village. The College Village was originally envisioned as a way to do two things, maybe three things. One was to provide an alternate revenue source potentially for the college to offset tax dollars. Secondly, to create facilities that students need to keep them on campus throughout the daytime, to reduce traffic, that also might be of interest and available to the community. And then thirdly, to have programs that link to our instructional programs, such as the hospitality program, the culinary program, and so forth. So we're going to take that and hold that right now out of the EIR process, and we're going to continue to examine it. And then when we know specifically what we're going to do, we'll move that forward with a separate considerations for EIR review. The College Village Center plan was not fully developed. It was a feasibility study. Our consultants looked at it and said, what will the community support in the way of retail space, in the way of hotel, and so forth? Originally, I think we envisioned a small guest house to serve the guests of the college and would be operated and run in conjunction with our hospitality programs. Well, I think it was beyond our wildest dreams that the consultants would come back and say it'll support a major hotel of 160 rooms thereabouts in there. So it's a little bit different there. So we're going to go back and refocus that. We'll come back to you, and there'll be more follow-up on that in the future. Second thing is we're going to remove the parking structure that was proposed on the fairgrounds from this portion of the EIR and to revisit that. We've heard your concerns. The college internally has lowered that parking structure as a priority because with the passage of Measure M and some of the state bond matching dollars that are not materializing, we don't have the money to do everything we need to do. Not surprisingly, the faculty and the staff have prioritized instructional facilities as well as student services facilities. So at this point in time, we will continue to research the parking deck and what our parking needs are for our population and to consider alternate areas for that, so on the locations on the campus. So those two things, we're going to continue to do more study before they move forward. We'll do a separate review of what needs to be done for EIR and then make sure it's transparent to everybody moving forward. Lastly is the historical structures. And the historical structures, we've commissioned one of the studies you'll learn about tonight from Dr. Pagel, and we will review and recommend alternatives for the repurposing for perhaps student services and administration. So the buildings that were built, we'll look at those and we'll try to figure out what the best use of them is, whether that's the best use for the long term of the college, and move forward. So that process is moving forward. We have considerable information on that and so forth. And then lastly, we'll continue to engage not only the college participatory governance processes, but also you all and the community neighbors so you know what's going on. So I think if you want to summarize here, we're going to take two of the concerns that you had, the parking structure and the College Village Center, and make sure we do more study on those. Come back to you with what our proposals are and make sure that at that time that we're transparent in what our offerings would be. All right, Dr. Pagel, would you like to come up and kind of review the highlights of the 4 studies that resulted in the concerns about traffic, College Village Center, et cetera?
Thank you. And you probably have questions too, so if we could just hold them off to the very end and we'll let you ask your questions as we go along. I'm Rich Pagel. Great to see everybody out here again tonight. So I'm going to cover the 4 studies that we did. First was the OCC Village. And as Dr. Harkin said, that was a feasibility study. We asked Brailsford and Dunleavy to come in and do more focus groups. Brailsford Dunleavy has been at each of the public comment meetings and community forums. They have heard you loud and clear. And this is really their summary of their report. While financially viable, B&D recommends that OCC not proceed with the hotel component of the College Village. Without consensus and support from the project from the local Costa Mesa community, and development of academic programs. That last piece is very important, the academic programs. We know on a college campus that if our academy doesn't support programs, they're not going to be sustainable in the long run. So in going through the additional studies, at this time we didn't see that in our campus, so we're not going to move forward with it at that time. The second is the parking structure, and it was a major concern with some of our neighbors right to the south here. And in meeting with our fairgrounds neighbors right across the street, we've been very honest with them, open. What happened was the pedestrian bridge. The city of Costa Mesa wanted us to see what a pedestrian bridge would cost to put across Fairview. In October 2014, we commissioned Cummings Group to come out and take a look at what a pedestrian bridge would cost us. It would be an additional $7.6 million. Second thing that happened was that there was no state higher education facilities bond on the November ballot last year. That's traditionally been there in the state of California. Every 2 years, we haven't had one for a while, but historically that's been, and that goes to fund facilities in the community college system, in the California State University system, and in the University of California system. Very important for higher education of California. Governor Brown might be looking at another way to fund higher education facilities. So that is in a little gray area as far as how we're going to see some of that funding come forward. With that being said, the college had to go back and take a look at all of the projects on its list and start to reprioritize projects because there wasn't enough Measure M dollars to carry forward on all of the educational programs. So you know that's a very time-consuming process, a little bit painful. At the end of the day, a couple projects dropped down in prioritization. One being an administration building, two being a parking structure. So those projects dropped in prioritization and they fell below some of the funding lines that were created. What they did is those funds went to support other classroom buildings going forward. And at the end of the presentation, I'll show you a list of classrooms that we're proposing moving forward. So now we do anticipate that at some point in the future we might have some parking needs. We're going to continue to work with our partners across the street with the fairgrounds. We think our relationship and their relationship and the way these two properties operate works well for our community. It alleviates the parking when there's the fair going on, and during our classes and when our sessions are in session, that parking helps us out considerably. So the parking structure we're going to take off the table right now. Next slide, please. Additional traffic analysis. The Costa Mesa, as one of their concerns, raised some additional traffic sites that they wanted us to go look at. So we hired the services of Lincott Law and Greenspan to come through, look at key additional intersections, which were identified, and we work with the city on that, look at peak weekend hours, and then also looked at the shared use of a parking structure and what that might entail as additional traffic. And their findings right now, they've came back, looked at all of the additional areas, and they said that the associated traffic with the proposed project will not significantly impact additional key intersections. That study was with the OCC Village and the parking structure and the housing all in place. Now, by reducing some of those projects off of our list, probably have to go back and do a further analysis, but we think our impact is going to be considerably less. Historical structures. That is an area for us we take very important. The college, 65 years old, 66 years old. And in the 50s, we had a famous architect on campus for a few years with us, Richard Neutra. So in our EIR process, it was identified that we might have an historical district here, an eligible historical district. So we hired the firm of Page and Turnbull, notable firm out of Los Angeles, to come and work with us. They looked at every single building on campus that was in this historical district. The report has come back. It's still in draft form. We're trying to get it finalized, hopefully this week. But it is a very well-prepared report, 2,600 pages, that goes through each of the buildings, looks at the analysis, looks at the possible repurpose. They've come back with several plans that we're going to analyze on the repurposing of some of these historical structures. So that's what the campus is going to do next. Through our facilities planning committee, which is a participatory governance committee made up of faculty and administrators and staff and students, they'll go through that proposed study, look at the proposed alternatives, and see which one works for the campus. And where we can repurpose buildings, we will. And where it doesn't make sense for us, then we'll look at alternatives. So that's an important process that came out in the many of the comments from the community and nationally too. Next slide. Had lots of comments, or a few comments about housing. Why does a community college need housing? And I think it's going to be important for us not to have this meeting, but to have another meeting, a topic that really focuses on why a community college like Orange Coast College, why is housing important for our students? And I think it would be important for us to communicate why that need is there. But let's just look at some of the findings that came out of a study that was done in May of 2014. And this is really to make housing, what's going to make housing work here at the college. And first, the most important thing, housing needs to be based in the educational mission of Orange Coast College. Housing should create an additional learning opportunity dedicated to enhancing academic environment. Housing facilities must be viewed as support mechanisms for academic success, completion, and student development. So this isn't your typical mixed-use housing. You can see right now, this is not your typical apartment building. This is different. This is more of a dormitory, a cohort of students coming together. Target populations: first-time student housing, veterans, foster youth, student learning communities. Those student learning communities can be athletes, maybe international students. Heard one comment said, you're building housing for all of the international students. When we do focus groups with international students, they want to be part of the California students. They don't want to be part of all the international students. They want to mingle and they want to get to know Costa Mesans or Southern Californians. That's one of the things they come here for. In turn, our students will get a great benefit of working with international students. But we're not building this for international students. I know that's one comment that's come about. We are going to be international and global in our thinking, but this is not just for international students. The college will leverage, let's see, did I miss one? Project will be viewed as an enhancement to the educational space, revenue neutral, maybe revenue positive. The goal is not to generate large revenues. Important. Anything that we generate with housing goes right back into the college. College will leverage the expertise of third-party providers for the management of housing. We're not experts in housing management. This is a space that has resident advisors with the students. Security is a priority. And the housing is a place for those students to be right here on our campus, not driving anywhere, maybe walking over to our local stores, but the idea is for them to live here on campus and be part of the campus cohort. Most importantly, there was a lot of confusion about how to fund student housing. This is not part of Measure M. Funds are from the district or perhaps a third-party provider. So, next slide. Now, I'm going to let Dennis Harkins, President Harkins, cover these last points. These are about our educational facilities, because we didn't hear any comments on those, and we appreciate your support on all these educational facilities.
So we've heard your concerns, but we also want to emphasize that Measure M bonds and the plans of the college are really to move the educational facilities forward. I think if you look at some of these projects, the planetarium and the recycling center, you'll see there's significant changes that are improvements, we believe, for the community through that. First is new literature and language classrooms. If you look out this way, later on today, you'll see we have a building that's going to be open in August, and that's a new business, math, and computing center. And it's around 90,000 square feet, and it'll be state-of-the-art facilities that will serve the community for another 50 years. Next is the social and behavior science classrooms. Pool and gym facilities need to be modernized, planetarium, recycling center, sustainability classroom, new dance classrooms. We have a large, very significant dance program. Rich, is it this Saturday? There's going to be a dance, Friday and Saturday dance performance. So if you're all interested in learning about OCC dance, come and visit us and see the performance. I think you'll find it outstanding. New chemistry classrooms. Then for the Student Center, this building has been here and been remodeled maybe 4 or 5 times. It was built in the 50s. It's about time that we can get together a new modern student union, and that will also take under a greater concern for sustainable landscaping. We know there's water issues facing us. There's transportation issues. So we want to move those all into the campus planning process. Okay, next slide. Next steps. So what do we do? Well, between now and probably the summer, we need to prepare for the recirculation of the environmental impact report. So we need to go through our internal processes, write the document, get it ready to send out so that everybody can make comments in that during the summer. Then hopefully we'll have an additional meeting in June or July. Then we'll prepare, you'll all have an opportunity to make comments on the EIR. We'll summarize the responses. We'll publish those. And then sometime probably in August, maybe September, the Board of Trustees will have a hearing to move forward on where we are with all the input that we've received on there. The board is the official group making the decision here, and there'll be a public hearing for comments. But I think there'll be a lot of information shared with you between now and then. I think that's the last slide. Oh, good. So at this point in time, I'd like to open it up for questions and answers or comments. Yes, please.
I had a question about the Major M educational facilities. I was kind of surprised to see that. The Major M was sold to the public as transportation and traffic.
This is a different Measure M. There's the county Measure M, and I think there's the state Measure M, if I'm correct on that. This is an education facilities bond Measure M. There's a separate transportation Measure M at the state level. Yeah, I understand the confusion. We only have 26 characters to handle all this work. Yes?
Could you quickly explain the Measure M funds that apply here? Is that something, when was it passed, and it authorizes bonds, I guess?
Right. It was passed in November of 2012. And that's a tax that the taxpayers of Orange County, particularly our district, I should say, voted to tax themselves to support higher education and the facilities of the Orange Coast College, Golden West College, and Coastline Community College. And that's, to make sure that we have state-of-the-art facilities for the students who most need them, and that we can continue to provide educational resources for the community. Yes?
On the slide, the proposed Measure M educational facilities, are those in order of priority?
No. The question was the slide that had the educational facilities for Measure M, are those in a priority order? No, they're not in a priority order. I think you'll find, though, the priority is there's a priority for modernizing the instructional spaces, and a real need parallel with that to make sure we have a great student services, student life services for students, for veterans, for everybody, all the way through. This facility is really pretty remarkable when you think about it, but it's served its time, and it's time for the college of 25,000 students to have a more modern, functional facility for student services. Yes?
Dr. Hawkins, the 2 items you've taken off the table for the time being, do you have any idea when they might land on that table again?
I don't see them in the immediate future because we're going to have our life pretty full of what's going on. The parking structure, I think, will be a matter of what we need to do strategically to supply the parking that the college needs. At one time, the college had an enrollment of 30,000 students, so that could be some time on there. The College Village Center, the faculty and staff need time to look at their educational programs, to scale them at the right order. If we do this as a non-Measure M project, and it is a non-Measure M project, a developer would be involved at some level. So the developer will bring ideas of their own, and we'll have to share those with everyone as well. And to do that. But we do not intend to make a strip mall. We do not intend to do anything that's going to change the basic nature of what we do, other than to provide services for our students, opportunities for instructional programs, and hopefully to share those with the local community. You know, if there's a Starbucks there, I hope you all come over and go to our Starbucks.
So we're a couple years out?
At least, I'd say yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Just kind of briefly mentioned that there are 25,000 students right now at OCC.
That's correct.
And you mentioned that there were at one time 30,000 students.
Correct.
Does that mean that there's a decline in enrollment at OCC? And is that forecast to continue to decline?
Well, I think that a lot of that goes back to Prop 13, when a lot of the funding for higher education fell through the bottom, and all colleges were forced to reduce the number of classes they offered. So I think the education demand is fairly constant right now. There's a lot of questions. The number of high school graduates is not increasing, is flat, sometimes declining. We would hope that a larger number of students will graduate from high school. You know, students that don't graduate from high school, that's lost human capital. Students that should and can go to college that don't have a space, that's a loss of human capital and opportunity, and changes people's lives. So we'll do everything we can to provide as much opportunity as we can. So I'm going to say no, I do not think there's a downward trend.
But what about the numbers? What do the numbers show?
Well, I think right now we're projecting 25,000 at the end of our plan. Is that right, Rich? We're not showing a significant increase over the next foreseeable future. Yeah. Any other questions? The question is, what's the scope of the total EIR? We understand you're taking off for the time being, a couple years or so, the parking structure, where that might be on the campus, if at all, and the college village, what that might look like. Dr. Pagel, would you like to tackle that question? He is the facilities czar, and these projects are important to our instructional mission. Do we want that slide back up? Do you want to pull that slide back up, perhaps, and look at that? Because I think that's probably the best guide, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah, I think so.
The things that were on that list. You know, first of all, we had the literature and language building. And then we had all the campus things. That's what's on the list. And the student housing is on that list.
So those are going. You're looking at filling the spaces where you thought you might put.
That's right.
Up to the northern parts of the campus. We heard you loud and clear that you want to keep things to the north of the campus, which were...
Yeah, what we've heard is that before we develop this area with instructional things or college village center or anything else, we need to define it better. We need to see if we need to do more in the way of mitigation, and we need to talk with you all. So both the parking structure and the college village center, we're going to pull off the table as a plan we're moving forward right now. We'll further define it, and then move it forward at that point in time with appropriate EIR or mitigation measures. Yes, please.
Where will that EIR be available to the public to review?
All of the reports that we have recently done, everything from student housing to college village, anything we've done will be available in the college library and under reserve for people that want to look at it. Jerry was going to look at that. We're trying to get it on the district website as well and be on the college website. So we'll get as much up there as we can so that you can find it. Okay. I'm working there. Yes?
Weren't there 2 parking structures being considered?
There was one parking structure with an alternative location. The original proposed location was that it would be here on the fair at the corner of Arlington and Fairview. And the alternate was that it would be in Merrimack over here. So we're taking both those off the table right now, and we'll do further refinement on that. Pardon me? Well, right now we haven't developed that. Yeah. it could end up there, but we don't know what it would look like. You'll know what it looks like. You'll know what's going to be in there. The chances are it's not going to be a 160-room hotel. Well, it is. You know, we have different centers for the, you know, we have a core for fine arts, we have a core for science, we have a core. This is adjacent to the student center. So from that standpoint, it might not be too far in the performing arts. But those are the type of considerations we need to make. It needs to make common sense. I understand. Well, that's why I said it's principally to serve our needs, to keep students on campus. And then if there's things you want to be involved into, that's great. Let me go back here to this one question. I'll be right with you. Yes?
Okay. You're removing the village and the parking structure, and you're going to recirculate a new AIR, but are you removing them from your master plan?
No.
And are you going to certify the original, is the original EIR going to be certified?
No.
Question. Can't hear the question.
Well, the question was, would the original EIR that we just published be certified? And the answer is no. The recirculated one will be reviewed and verified at the appropriate time.
And those two items will not be removed from your master plan?
No, they will remain on the master plan, but they're not part of the EIR. So we'll have to do additional, research for CEQA and or mitigation as appropriate. Okay. Yes.
Currently, without any of these, the hotel or the parking structure, you guys have a problem with your security, students being loud, some sort of ruckus still in the parking lots. Either hire new security, get rid of your old one because they really aren't doing their job.
Which parking lot are you most concerned about?
Yeah.
Which street is that? Okay.
And this is not even without any of those structures. So now you're going to bring students into coming over to the village when you do make it. Now imagine the ruckus they're going to make and what we have to live with, okay? So there's a problem right now. Imagine how worse it's going to get after the fact. I understand it's off the table right now, but you're not taking it off the table forever.
If you have a problem now, please communicate with us. Let us know specifically. We'll see if there's anything we can do.
You have a phone number, I call you.
That's fine.
9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, I'll call you every night.
Call my daughter up at 1 o'clock. She's awake 24 hours a day. That'd be fine.
I need your phone number, I'll call you every night because I hear it every night.
Okay. Realize that the College Village, if it were to be made, and depending what the buildings look like and where they were, could be as much a barrier as it could be a funnel for noise. So I understand your concern. And certainly when we, consider all these things, we'll try to do it. Dr. Pagel, let's give this lady the number for security so she can contact them.
I'll take your number. I want to wake you up because these kids are waking us up. So I want you to go through what we're going through. The pains that we go through, we want you to understand that, not security. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay? You don't live in our shoes. You don't live in our houses. We live there. We have to go through this. I'm telling you how we feel. So you need to be called and you need to go through it. That's what I'm saying. I don't need security. I need your number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have your number. Let's go back here in the back. Yes, sir.
Would you please describe the location, the number of students the student housing will support, and the size of the buildings that will be necessary?
Well, at this point in time, I can tell you that we anticipated that the largest build-out would be potentially for 1,800 students, and we proposed that it would be done in two different phases. But when we work with the developer, they will help us define all that, and we'll share that all with you. Right now, it's in this facility right here, in this corner of the campus across from the district offices. And it's this space right through here. So there's a lot of space there for housing that's on there. I think there's enough space. it will probably be multi-story. In fact, most of the construction on the campus will probably be multi-story in the future, just as our classrooms are, to be more efficient in the use of space and more efficient in the cost of building. Yes?
A couple of points. You know, as I mentioned before a few months ago that I was at a similar meeting, you really, OCC is in the middle of our community. It's not in an area where you wouldn't bother residential property. And so you really have to be sensitive to that. In fact, you have residential property all around our site here at Orange Coast College. The city of Costa Mesa has one of the highest levels of apartments of any city in Orange County. And you actually have apartments all around Orange Coast. And so the idea of actually adding more population, and that's what the dorms would be, seems like there are two kind of questions about it, or three. One would be, why would you want to do that? Because you have apartments surrounding the college. Secondly, you're adding population, and so it's hard to believe that a traffic study would not say that there's going to be more trips going out particularly on Adams, because you're adding population. It's not, I mean, you're actually adding more housing around the school, and so there would have to be more trips going out onto Adams. And if the traffic engineers are saying no, there aren't going to be, well, you really have to look hard at that study. And then the third thing and the last thing.
You're going to help me review these so I can answer them, okay? So don't get too many. You've got to help me.
Hey, the third thing would be, a few years ago, Costa Mesa was under a lot of pressure to go ahead and let streets like Geisler up near the 405 cross the Santa Ana River so that traffic from Huntington Beach could come across and meet up with the 405. And the same thing happened, the pressure was on 19th Street to go across the Santa Ana River to bring population right into the center of Costa Mesa to meet up with a 55. And when you start, and now we have Adams, and that's our semi-freeway that goes from Huntington Beach through Costa Mesa. And as you put more trips on Adams, you're going to reach the point where somebody in the county is going to say, hey, we need to have Geisler across the Santa Ana River because we can't have Adams with such traffic levels on it. And the same with 19th Street. We're going to be back to that same situation. And so, anyway, so you're hitting really sensitive buttons when you talk about dorms.
Yeah. Let me go one at a time. See if I get all three. Number one is the reason for dorms is to create a better living environment for students and to make it educationally focused where they're with people like them that are studying and to have it controlled and managed professionally. Those students now that's not additional students for the college. They're students we already have. So I don't think by that nature it will create a larger population, at least on the campus. The other part of it is by having housing on the campus, those students are not driving to the campus and leaving the campus and coming back to the campus perhaps during the day.
You're missing the point, though.
Well, keep going.
Okay, the point is
now you could say they're going to backfill the other apartments in town.
Well, that's what you would say. You would say, well, okay, we're going to have dorms, so we're going to eliminate this apartment complex over here so the population doesn't increase. But the dorms increases population.
The total number of rooms would be increased from the total city perspective.
Yeah, around the college.
Right.
So you're going to have more population. They're going to be driving cars, maybe not at the same level as the folks that live in the apartments, but they're going to be driving cars. And so you're going to have more traffic on Adams, for sure.
You'll have more cars on campus. We also probably will have more students without cars, is what we hope as well.
It doesn't matter, because you have population in the apartments surrounding the college.
Right.
Now you're introducing more housing that will bring more people within this 1 mile area.
I do get your point.
Okay.
I do get your point. All I can talk about is the educational mission, the fact that we believe students will be on the road less, they'll have a better education, a better social environment, And we believe long term, we hope to be able to keep the price of housing from escalating as it might on the outside by being significant partners into the process. That's one. Number two, let's go to it now. Two was the...
Well, just in general, you have housing around, well, housing
Right.
around the college, and so you have to be sensitive to particularly traffic, but everything, visibility.
I'm sensitive to traffic. I do go across that bridge on Adams and I'm running a house just on the other side there. So I understand the density there and the times of day and whatever. So I do get it. And, I get that the traffic goes both ways, at different times in the day. So I do understand that. And I also understand, I probably shouldn't say this, but if you build a road, you build traffic. So, you don't necessarily reduce traffic in the long run, but you can mitigate it for a period of time.
You also have a district site over there that wanted to build a lot of apartments as well.
That's yet to be determined what will happen there, if anything, but I appreciate your comments. You're next.
Where's the district getting the perception that there needs to be campus housing? Is there demand that's being generated from your studies that says students want to live on campus?
Well,
and the other question is, can you point to a similar community college within California that's done campus housing in dormitories? I used to go to OCC and I could never imagine living on it. But give us an example of another community college within California that's added campus housing that's been successful at it.
If you were to look at the California Community College's Chancellor's website, there's a link there to housing and housing services. There are 11 community colleges listed that have housing
Is there a case study that compares the housing that you want to do to someone else's successful?
No, but there are other housing apartments in California. Your second question?
The first part was, where is the expectation coming from that there are students that want to live on this campus?
Well, there's two things. Number one is we did conduct a study, and Matt, I think, is Bohannon. You might talk to him after the meeting. Matt's in the white shirt. But the initial study actually showed that our current students and residents of Orange County, particularly, are more interested in going into housing on the campus than perhaps people from out of state. So that was kind of an interesting observation. So we believe it's important for the educational environment. Studies show that students that live in college housing graduate at a higher rate, get higher grades, and the local kids like and want to have a college life. They don't necessarily want to live at home, and if you've ever had a teenage student living at home in college, you kind of get that desire maybe for them to want to participate in regular college life beyond just commuter. So those are the indications.
It seems like there's a lot of questions about housing, and what I propose is that we have a separate meeting where we can go through the two studies that we've done so far. We'll look at the surveys that we've sent out. We've had a lot of focus groups with students, and I think that would help you understand the difference between what we're proposing and what the apartments around us are proposing. And I would invite you, please leave your name on the back panel back. And then what we'll have is another gathering that just really focuses on housing, why it's important for
Here's your phone. How many of you lived in student housing? Okay, so you know more about it than I did. I didn't live in student housing on there. Yes?
Isn't OCC going in the direction of becoming a four-year college?
Orange Coast College and our faculty, in line with a pilot that's being run at the State Chancellor's Office, developed about 12 baccalaureate programs that we believe are really needed for the immediate area. Our faculty academic senate prioritized 9 of them, and we submitted one to the district for consideration. We are not in the pilot, but I think the pilot will be successful as it has been, I think, in 23 other states. And at some point in time, we will be able to offer offer baccalaureate degrees as appropriate for a community college. Part of the pressure is to have students an affordable opportunity to earn bachelor's degrees.
I thought that was going to be the trend, that the community colleges were going to become a four-year college, and then the next higher class would be the Cal State, and then the UCI would be the highest.
That's kind of the structure, but I think we will be community colleges that confer baccalaureate degrees, not baccalaureate granting institutions. And I think it's a significant difference because it keeps us back to our core of serving the community and giving our students the opportunity and access to a baccalaureate they don't have otherwise. You know, a lot of the Cal States and the UCIs are impacted. There's no room for the students, and that's pretty serious. So we'd like to make sure that our students have every opportunity they can have to get the education they want right here. Yes, please.
I know you said you wanted to talk about housing in a separate meeting, but I'm here now and I don't know if I'll be there at the other meeting. So my question is, when you talk about student housing, are you talking about the classic student dorm where basically you all eat together, you know, you're all on top of each other? Or are you talking, which actually is a very good experience, or are you talking about student apartments? And then if you're talking about apartments, you talked about a target group of people, veterans, foster youth, those kinds of people who really could probably use a better housing option. So what will you do to keep it affordable for those people?
All right, first question is, what will they look like? And I think they're going to look a little bit different than the traditional dorm with the shared bathroom and showers. They'll look more like apartment suites, I guess. Maybe 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. And our studies have shown that some students want a single bedroom, some want a double bedroom, want triple bedroom. But the idea would be that there'd be, let's say, 3 bedrooms, and that maybe 5 people, 6 people would be in there with a shared kitchen and shared living space. So it's more of a cluster grouping than it would be the traditional. The whole floor has the dormitory, has the bathroom, has the things like that. The second part of your question is, what can we do to help it keep affordability? You know, by this being a private-public partnership, I think our cost is pretty well fixed once we enter this arrangement, so that in the that's right. So we're not buying land. So I'm hoping in the future that allows us to leverage that to keep the prices down from future growth. We're going to build it at today's rate, but long term, I hope that we can make this more affordable to students and more affordable to parents that are trying to put their kids through school.
Can I add a couple things?
You can.
Okay. One is to also keep down the barriers. Right now, if you were to go any of our residential property owners around, they want them to sign a 12-month lease. Students need the bed, really, for that semester. Then the other thing is meal plans. We have a great culinary arts program. We can have meal plans for those students. We can also bundle all of the services, the high-speed internet, the utilities, the water, all bundled in with the cost of housing. They don't have to file a separate credit app with all of their different utilities at the same time. It's all done through the housing.
And they can access the school library and all the software.
It's really trying to break down some of the hurdles that's facing the students. Right now, many of the apartments around them also makes them take out renter's insurance at the same time. All those are additional costs that are affecting all the middle class, to be honest with you. And how can we start to lower those costs for students so that they can get a good education, be in a great community with colleagues that are learning at the same time?
Okay, let me go all the way back here. There's somebody hidden behind the recycling center picture. Yes.
I have a newsletter, Coast to Coast Reporter, February 18th, that stated Measure M monies will also help fund student dorms. So what you're saying now
that's incorrect.
That is incorrect.
Absolutely incorrect.
And also, when you're considering this other meeting for housing, I did go online and looked at community colleges. I found 72 community colleges. There is only one with online housing. It's in a on-campus housing, and it's in a rural community, whereas all of the other ones, the housing is off-campus. So I want this meeting to focus on why this has to be done here, on campus, in a large metropolitan area as we are.
Well, I think we talked about the reasons of trying to give the students the benefits of being on campus, having a learning community, long-term trying to be able to control the cost of the facilities for students and parents. I think those are the reasons. And by having it on the campus, we have the opportunity, I think, to control some of those costs as well as the quality of services. Yes.
I have a question about the student housing. I keep hearing the term public-private partnership, and that can take many, many forms. As an example, around USC, there are a lot of private dorms, some of which are on university land or very close to university land. When you say private-public partnership for these dorms, are these going to be dormitories operated by private companies, or what format is that going to take? Many times these partnerships end up greatly benefiting the companies that operate them. Meanwhile, the public entity bears all the risk and eventually ends up selling off their piece of the partnership to the private company.
When we did some of the early modeling for this on a financial model, we worked with the consultants, and some of the consultants originally came back and said, we need to finance this for 60 years. And I'm thinking, well, that would have been like somebody back in 1960 thinking about what we're doing now. That's a long time ago. I'm not really comfortable with that. So we have tried to come up with a 25 or 30-year model to be a little bit more conservative, to build that in. And the other thing is, at the end of the time, then the college owns the dormitories and the things, all the improvements in that. So from a private-public partnership, I think really what it means is we contribute the land. We end up with ownership at the end. And then we have some entity that invests in it. And then separate to that, we envision that we'd have somebody that's a professional in running student housing run the student housing. So I think there's different steps there. So I'm sensitive to what you're saying. And, again, I'm very conservative. 60 years is too long. 25, 30 is a long time, but at least within the horizon of what we might do. Okay. Other questions? Right here in the back? All right. Yes, sir.
I don't want everybody to laugh, but one of the facilities that I really use a lot at the college is the recycling center. And I noticed that you've increased the size of the area a lot. And I hope that means a lot more parking, because it's a very, very popular place for the community. And it does a good job, but the parking is just outrageous anymore.
We agree with you, and the plan is over here. Dr. Pegel, remind me, was it 40? How many parking spaces?
So right now we have 8 parking spaces.
Yeah.
And you all do a very good job of filling those up. We'd like to go to 45 parking spaces.
So from 8 to 45 spaces, plus there's a deceleration lane and an acceleration lane, so you can get in and out better.
Talk about the deceleration lane and the turnout lane.
That's great.
Yes.
There is a deceleration lane on your plan, but there's no acceleration lane. We've talked about that because Adams is a curve there, and if you're trying to get out of the parking lot with people going 50, probably, it's really dangerous. Something has to be addressed. The deceleration lane is great getting in, but getting out, that's going to be problematic, especially with more people coming out of it.
Well, we need to continue to look at that. It's going to be better than it was. And I guess, Ernesto, maybe you can help us with that. Right?
Let's answer.
Well, we're working on that. We requested both.
Right.
The axle and the decel.
So we're looking both ways to see where we can get. We acknowledge it's a problem. Right now, I know that if you've ever tried to go in there, I have trouble just getting off the street. And that's a problem. And we really appreciate the support of the community. That means a lot to the college. It gives the students a lot of employment and creates some revenues that go back to help students at the place.
Looking at the chart, it seems like it's not an unsolvable problem. Just have to get together with the city and make that work, because it's on the inside of a curve. That's really dangerous.
Well, the city's been very good with us. You have a better angle than we did before. It's not quite as hidden and whatever. So I really appreciate your comments. Yes.
I'm not familiar with a recirculated CEQA document. Can you tell us more, or your consultant tell us more about, especially comment period on that, whether it'll be extended, in that you're reworking some of the more controversial aspects?
My understanding is there's a 45-day comment
It's
period.
the same as before. The EIR will be revised, taking the comments into account, and it'll go out again just like before, and you'll get 45 days to comment on the document.
But wait, part of the problem last time was that you didn't actually notify anyone in College Park.
Well, that is, changed. I mean, I think.
But you're saying it's the same thing as before?
Well, I meant the public review period.
Okay, so you're going to notify the College Park people this time?
Right.
We'll do everything we can. We need the comments.
Yeah.
And
you'll know about it.
Right.
And there'll be another public hearing during the course of the 45 days, and you can come, and it'll be transcribed, and we'll record it, and we'll go into the final EIR. So it's like we're starting over again from the beginning at the EIR stage. We're not going back to the initial study, which was back in June, but we're starting the EIR process again.
I think we had a question, we'll go back around.
Quick question before I ask my question. Do you know, maybe Mr. Pagel can answer, when the art building was built? The new art building?
The Art Center building was commissioned, brought online in 2004.
2004, okay. I'm a direct neighbor over there, and I hear the word studies and, you know, environmental impact and all these things. Was any notification given, and was there a forum like this for that building?
Probably would have been in the 80s, you know, or
Would
90s.
matter.
There was
Because I'm curious of what, maybe I could bring this
Before
up
I got
now.
here, I should
Okay.
say, but we followed the California Environmental Quality Act process then as we do now.
Which in my opinion probably would be outdated. And I'm curious if you guys have talked about a new environmental study, noise impact. You have the backup generator for the entire college right there,
Just
which
for that
is,
building.
you know, a very quiet, when you go internally to the campus area, it's beautiful. When you walk behind there, it's not. And that's directly impacting all of the neighbors over there. So I'm curious if, you know, as we get into here, 2015, and we're doing all these studies, we want to make sure everyone's happy. But what happened to the building that, you know, where do we go from there? And I want to make sure that the new studies aren't as ineffective as that one was.
The previous ones. So I know on that particular building, we've been working with the neighbors on Hanover in that area.
Can't hear you.
We've been working with the neighbors
Yep.
in that area. There has been a particular neighbor that has complained about the chiller there. And we've done sound studies. We've actually done a sound dampening procedure that has reduced the noise.
Okay.
And that we also take decibel readings out of the lot. So we are in compliance with the city of Costa Mesa as far as decibels on the street.
Okay.
So if there's more that we need to do, we're here.
Okay.
We're here. We're your neighbor. We're not going anywhere. I know that some neighbors, sometimes the lights are an issue in that particular parking lots. When we go out there and we look at the street lights are lighter than the actual campus is when it goes on. So it's hard to determine. Unfortunately, I think all the homes along that way need a new wall, you know, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I look at the walls that are there from the 1950s, and they're still the same walls from the 1950s. So,
but I appreciate that. I was just hoping that the, you know, these studies do
you know,
We hope it does too, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to recirculate, so that you all have another opportunity to look at what the thinking is. Yes?
So obviously, I'm thrilled that you're not doing the parking lot in the student mixed-use thing or whatever, but this is just a comment. So wouldn't the parking garage then be really great over here with the housing?
If you lived in housing, you'd think so.
For example, here, between the housing and the football stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're going to look at what the student demand is, and we know there's going to be a lot of demand on Fairview, and there's a lot of demand with the classrooms here. So certainly there's maybe an opportunity for maybe rather than one large, two small. So we have to consider that. We hear you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I had a question. Try to yell. I had a question about the traffic study that was recently finished, and it was that conducted in conjunction with the fairgrounds and with fair events and concerts and
yes,
you know, the fair in mind, really?
we took all of the fair's events that they're currently having, about 28 events a year. That was factored in with the campus structure and the campus traffic, and all of that was blended in. So.
Another question back here.
It's more of a comment. Hi, I'm a student at OCC, and I actually live across the street. So I completely hear you guys with the noises and all that stuff. For sure, I understand. And I use my car on the weekends. Like, it's so convenient for me to be right across the street. I walk to school. I don't work far, so I get to walk to work as well. So definitely, like, I hear the noise, and I hear kids staying up till past midnight. I'm 24. I can just go here, so no, I don't stay up past midnight. It's not what I do. I'm in bed at 9:30. Like, this is just the reality of it. I'm also an adult. I also have other responsibilities. I don't have any children, stuff like that, so I don't have to take that into consideration. But just as a student who gets to walk here, I'm so grateful. It is very expensive for me to live across the street. It is very expensive.
Question?
Yeah, just on the traffic study, where you said it included the fare, did it include the fare as a blended number, or did it include the fare as a specific, because you know the 2 months during the fair itself, the traffic goes way up in the air.
I will leave that to the traffic professionals to answer that question. And we're going to have, our goal is to have all these studies in our library here by Wednesday, Thursday of this week. Some of them are draft still. But that's where our city gets involved too with traffic. They've been very helpful. They've been very patient with us. And I think in their leadership and us coming together, we can make this work.
Yes, sir.
The City of Costa Mesa has formed a committee to study bikeability and walkability. And that'll be taking place in the near future, going probably for a year or so. And I didn't hear one word about any kind of planning by OCC in their traffic studies about, I didn't hear the word bicycle and walkability.
Last slide.
So okay, and walkways and bikeways. So finally, one little spot at the end. So anyway, I would like, I have two sons, one went to Santa Barbara, one went to Davis, major bicycle campuses, of course, UC system. And so I would like to see OCC really get into participating in increasing the bikeability. Fairview is a disaster when it comes to bikeability and getting across the freeway. Adams is terrible. Our planning department is working on a master plan for bikeways. And so I would invite OCC to assign a person to come to these committee meetings.
Isn't Dean Abernathy?
So Dr. Dean Abernathy, who works on our campus, is also very integrated with the bikeways on Orange Coast College. We're in the process of hiring the same bikeways architect that you've used for the City of Costa Mesa, that they've used at Huntington Beach, John Holloway's firm down in San Diego, to come on campus in the fall and to look at not only bikeways, but we have a skateboarding, and then we have carts too that go across our campus. So how do we start to tie in all of those into a campus environment? Campuses that you mentioned, Santa Barbara, if you've been on the Santa Barbara campus, they do a marvelous job of putting bikeways and pedestrian and skateboarding all on a university campus. It's really a model in the state.
I have two children that just finished college, I hope, and a total of 9 years, and 9 years without cars for either one of them. Travel by bus and foot. Yes.
Yes. You mentioned about our neighbors with, our walls were from 50 years ago, whatever. You have a solution for that, and who's going to foot the bill?
I live in Huntington Beach. I just put up a wall myself. So.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that all that noise and light and everything is going to come from you guys. So shouldn't you put up the wall?
We've been here for 65 years.
Well, but
we were here.
We're not the noisemakers.
Let's study where the noise is coming from. Let's talk about it, and let's see what we all want to do. If you all come up with a plan, I think we're happy to talk about that plan. I have no idea what we can do. I don't even know who owns that land on that side of the street, to be honest about it, which has a major challenge for us. So.
Well, it should be who's the noisemaker should be the one putting up the walls. Footing the bill.
We'll have our students there next week putting up that wall, I guess.
Hey, if it's, that's great. Let them do it.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you. But we'll look and see where the property line is, see what a solution is, and we'll share that maybe with you all, and we can have more of a conversation. I see a hand over here. Yes?
Historical report be available to be viewed?
Well,
it's in draft form
the
right
report's
now.
in draft, and we anticipate it should be done within next week.
Hopefully this week.
And
will it be able to be emailed to people who put their name?
I don't think we'll be able to email this one out. It's a large document.
How do you expect us to review it then?
Well, I think when the library will have copies available, and then we'll see about how we might be able to make electronic copies.
Rachel, you had a suggestion?
Great.
Well, all of these studies are really, I know you're trying to make everything available, but these are all the reports that form the substantial evidence for the EIR findings. And it would be better if we send everything out and make it available at the same time when the EIR is complete, so everybody in this room and other members of the public and agencies all have the same amount of time to review the documentation. I've just been concerned, that we're going to be giving some people additional time and everybody else gets 45 days, so I think we want to keep it fair. We also want to give the consultants an opportunity to finalize the report before we give you a draft report. That, I think we want to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row too. So that would be my advice, is just let's finalize everything. Let's go out, finish our EIR, or recirculate the EIR, and make it available for everybody at the same time to take a look at and comment on.
Rachel, we're going to follow your advice. Was there something you were particularly interested in?
So when was that?
Well,
when will that be available?
The
schedule above.
Time frame said June.
I'm sorry?
Time frame said June for the EIR.
June 15th?
Well, I don't know about June 15th.
So as soon as we can.
Sometime June 2015.
Yeah, we want it done as quickly as we can. Is there a particular concern you have?
Well, we just don't want to be overlooked and all of a sudden 45 days go by and the time is lost. So
Sure.
we just want to be aware of the whole political process here and be able to respond appropriately.
I appreciate that. I think we have 3 more questions, and you haven't had a question yet. You get to have a question. How about that?
What's the procedure for community notification for when the items that are currently being removed from the EIR are planned, that are keeping on the master plan, are being reinsert into the new EIR? What's the community procedure?
We'll do the same thing. We'll try to communicate the same way, and we'll have a public hearing for that. What we've tried to do is to circulate notices about a mile around the campus. It's not science. You can't take a compass. It kind of goes by neighborhood and zip code as we get the addresses and things.
Like our concern this time is finding out. We didn't find out. We found out from neighbors, not through the college.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically weren't notified properly the first time, and we don't want that to happen.
Just
I
for
understand.
reference, the notice for this particular meeting showed up at my address on Saturday afternoon.
Yes. Mine too.
And I
Yes,
luckily
mine too.
was not traveling for
Yes.
business and was able to find a sitter.
Well, I apologize for that because that's not our intent. We want to give it to you soon enough, but not so soon that you forget about it. I mean, you know what I'm saying, though. So we apologize if you just got the notice, and I appreciate you being here. The best way is to put your email address back on the list, and you'll get a specific email through there. Okay. I'm coming around here. Yes.
So basically, anybody who signs up back there can be assured that they will get the notice?
That's our intent. We'll do the best we can, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far.
Print
Thank
clearly,
you.
please.
Yeah,
print
clearly.
So we can
Try to do it
read,
clearly.
Especially your emails.
All right, yes.
Okay, now that we've agreed that we're going to delay releasing all of the traffic studies and all the other historical reports, etc., until the EIR is finished, can we please get an agreement to have them posted online? So, because saying you have to go to the library, I'm sorry, but that sounds a little bit like the beginning of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And also, if you post them online, as well as putting them in the library, post them online eliminates public records requests. So if we can just
I
ask
believe
you to...
the EIR was online, and the old EIR may still be online.
Right, but all the other supporting
We'll do everything.
traffic studies,
We'll do
things like
everything.
that, because
We'll do
those
everything
also
we can.
impact development at the fairgrounds. So if we just get all that stuff online, then we don't have to do public records requests.
All right, we'll take
I think
that.
that's really
We'll
great
take
for
that
everybody.
request forward and hopefully be able to do that because I certainly understand. We want this stuff to be available.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And we don't want to make copies every day.
Exactly.
Yes.
Couple questions. Well, actually, the online point I agree with, and I voted for Measure M. I voted for Measure M because I thought that basically it was going to update Orange Coast College, basically, and make all the buildings modern, high tech. I don't think I would have voted for Measure M to have a hotel on our college campus. And the question would really be like, if you do have a curriculum that has hospitality, why not go out? You know, you have Marriott in several places nearby. And why not partner with them?
We do partner with them. One of the reasons is just so the students have the 360-degree responsibility of being accountable, owning it, and do it. I mean, I'm impressed with the food service people here. They can tell me how much salt goes on every hamburger. I mean, the record keeping they do, the learning that students do. So that's the idea, is to have it on sites available.
What you're doing is you're actually taking you're taking real estate off the campus. You're putting a hotel or maybe some educational facility.
Again, we were originally talking about a guest house. The feasibility study said, boy, why a guest house? You can have a hotel for 160. That was never our real intention. So if you want to do a 160-room hotel somewhere in this area, there's a study that supports there's a need for it. Okay, I don't think we'll be doing that. All right, thank you. Yes?
Gentleman up front had a question about the historical stuff.
Yes.
In one of the previous meetings, there was a discussion about Richard Neutra.
Yes.
Rich mentioned him. And I don't have a dog in this hunt, except that they just tore down the Richard Neutra building in Newport Beach like a month ago.
No, that was not a Richard Neutra building. It's still there. That's the.
Is that right? The one they tore down is not a Richard Neutra?
Correct. The Richard Neutra building, Mariners Medical Arts, is still there. Yep. Next door to it was demolished. So
I think this is.
I'm just concerned about whether there's a plan for any activity in the Neutra building here.
That Neutra building is a perfect example of the community coming forward and saving a significant cultural structure. So hopefully that can occur here as well.
If you were to look at the historic buildings or the potential ones, am I correct that the priority would be to save the Neutra building, the ones that he designed specifically?
I would think so. The Neutra is the most significant contribution to this campus.
So things like the auditorium and education, the business education building.
The planetarium, what is now the math wing, I believe, and then the science wing. There's basically those three diagonal wings.
Well, historically, those were designed by three different people, and they have three different types of construction methodologies. So the center one appears to be the one that was actually architecturally designed.
This is Neutra with an addition done by a different architect. This is Neutra, all of that's the business administration. This is Neutra with Robert Alexander, and then this is Neutra also right in here. This is Robert Alexander. These other ones are more recent in the 70s. But this building, which is also that little building, the planetarium, that additional building, well, actually it's part of this, not that whole part. This is the business administration, and those three essential buildings are what are.
Yeah, I think the historic resource that we provide will show detail on who did what, when, where, and whatever.
Those were in the Measure M planning. This whole area was slated for demolition for a great lawn of nothing.
That was. Well, I don't think it was ever a great lawn. I think it was just.
The lawn area.
It was future building areas and paths for the building for the college.
That's not the way it was stated in the 2020 vision.
Yeah,
so
it would be.
That's different.
That's why it was designed that way, I understand. I think Dr. Pagel explained it to me that the vision was you'd build on the inside, and then you'd build on the outside over time.
Get the historical structures report that we paid for, analyze it, see how we can repurpose some of the historical structures we have, and then really honor our history. If you go outside these doors, you see the old Army base. We have pictures around this campus of the Santa Ana Army Air Base. It doesn't exist anymore on this campus. We still honor history. The campus will be here for thousands of years.
As of March 17th, I requested Coastline Community College information on the parking structure and Measure M monies. I've yet to receive any information from them, so I'm asking, are Measure M funds going to be used for the parking structure?
Which parking structure?
The one that is envisioned.
I mean, here on the campus?
Yes.
No.
No Measure M funds?
No Measure M funds would be used for the parking structures. It was proposed. I'm sorry, Rich. That was a Measure M project, the parking structure?
Originally it was a Measure M
parking structure.
With the fairgrounds and the Fair and Event Center. And because of the way the state's changed its funding structure, we had to go back and reprioritize all of our projects. And some of the projects, as I mentioned, fell below the funding line.
So the parking structure was a Measure M project. I'm going to suggest you talk to Dr. Pagel afterwards. And if you're having trouble getting information, let's make sure you're putting your records request to the right place.
Trust me, it's at the right place, 4 times. I met
Okay.
with Julie Fraser Matthews, so.
All right, well, okay, I just want to make sure we're connecting the dots. I'll try to speed the dots up.
Thank you.
All right, you all have made a big commitment. This is your neighborhood. You've given us some big information, some feedback. You've taken time to look at the plans. Hopefully, the message you go away with is 1, we value you. 2, we've heard your concerns. We're going to make sure we respond to those concerns till we move forward. Our priority is building the greatest educational environment we can for our students. It's going to help them succeed. And that's our priority. So hopefully that's the message you go away with. And if you have further requests for information, feel free. Juan, do we have a website up or an email address for people to ask for additional? Community feedback at orangecoastcollege.edu. Any questions there, we'll respond to it. All right, I want to thank you all. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Good question.